Hi everyone, it's Kim and I am so excited. I am here today with a very special guest, a woman that means so much to me. More than words can say. Her name is Zsuzsi Evans. Zsuzsi is short for Zsuzsanna, which I just like to say. Hi Zsuzsi. Zsuzsi is the CEO of a company called Genetic Yoga, which we'll be talking all about the service they provide today, which is called Human Design. And our topic today is the one aspect of human design, only one. There are many, but it has to do with intuitive eating. And I know that most people who watch my channel suffer or struggle with some sort of skin issue, and just talking food, talking about eating, it's why they tune in. So this particular aspect of human design definitely has impacted my life, and I'll share how in a bit. But I just thought having Zsuzsi on would be awesome. So Zsuzsi, why don't you start off by just introducing yourself, telling everybody a little bit about you and all about what human design is so they understand.
Sure. This is actually so interesting because I'm the one who's usually interviewing someone. I was like, oh, wow, yeah, I get to answer questions now. So for those of you who don't know, human design is a synthesis of a lot of different types of knowledge. It takes from the Hindu Brahmin chakra system, astrology, genetic mapping, the Kabbalah, the Chinese I Ching, and it's all sort of culminated in this one incredible system. And the thing that makes human design really special is that there's two sides of what you get to know about yourself. On the one hand, you get to know things about your personality, things that are consistently who you are. And a lot of people say that learning about these things about themselves gives them permission to be who they are. So it's definitely more of the psychological portion of knowing about your human design. And as you know, through healing your skin, that is such a huge part of this journey that we're on. And the other part of human design deals with your unconscious, your body, your form, the things that you can't see about yourself, which is what we're here to talk about today. The system is called the science of differentiation, which is basically about how we're all different and unique, and we all have different and unique needs. And the primary health system in human design is something that can give you a specific recommendation for how you are here to take in nutrition. Like I said to you earlier, you can't really have one without the other, right? Knowing who you are and how you're here to move through the world is such an integral part of learning about your biology and the way that you are here to digest and eat and all of these things. So there's a lot to know about these things, and there's a lot on the psychology of human design that's available for free all over the internet. But I will say the primary health system is a little bit more for the advanced students of human design. And my teacher is a holistic analysis professional. So he made it his mission to make sure that people who get human design readings also learn about this aspect of themselves, because it goes hand in hand so beautifully.
You know, when I was healing my skin the very first time, first part of my journey, it was all about food. And I just thought food was my nutrition, and that was it. I didn't look at nutrition as this really large, like food was just one small piece of the nutrition puzzle. And slowly over time, I started to realize, you know, having a healthy relationship with food having a healthy relationship with my body, with people, with money. I mean, I can go on and on, having my own spiritual practice, which is different for everybody. All of that is the emotional piece. And it's so much larger and more important than the food piece. But obviously we both know the food piece is really important, but it is only just one piece of the puzzle. So I do encourage anyone, you know, we're going to get into the nitty gritty of this one aspect of human design, but I do encourage everyone, if you're interested and intrigued and looking into it, to really learn about the other pieces, because that's really the larger part of it. So Zsuzsi, to start us off, I'd love for you to tell us how learning about, you know, regarding food and that one aspect, what you learned about your own strategies and design regarding food and how that impacted your life. And then I would love for you to also, I'll share mine too. And then I'd love to just maybe have you tell us a whole bunch of different examples of people that you have worked with, so that they can, the people listening can have this kind of broader view of how many different types there are and how it can range from one end of the spectrum to another. So let's start with you.
Sure. So the PHS system breaks people down into two categories. Some people are circumstantial eaters, so it's about the circumstances surrounding them. And for other people, it's about the food itself. So I'm a circumstantial eater, and the circumstances where I take in the nutrition best is during daylight hours. So it's really when UV rays are present. And when I heard this about myself for the very first time, like, everything just kind of clicked into place. I love eating outside. I love, you know, brunch is my favorite meal of the day. When I was like left to my own devices, I was living alone, I was single, I would come home after work and like take a few carrots and eat it with hummus, and that's it. Like, I did not desire anything else when it was dark outside, and I still don't. It's really like, now that I'm tuned into it, like if I'm hungry at night when it's dark outside, I can have like literally a fig, and I'm like, yep, that's all I needed, you know. But in the middle of the day, I can be ravenous. So a lot of people, when they hear about their eating, a lot of things just sort of click into place. A lot of things start to make sense to them about why they ate the way that they ate. And like, I can think back to when I was in Italy, and everybody eats late at night in Italy. And like, I was not well for months after I came back from my trip to Italy. I mean, I really enjoyed all of that food, but my whole system was like flared up so incredibly after I got back, because most of my meals were at late at night, and that like could not have been worse for my system. But not everybody is meant to eat the way that I eat. You know, it's not a one size fits all thing. You know, most people say, oh yeah, it's not good for you to eat at night. Well, it's not good for me to eat at night, but there are people who are here to eat when it's dark outside, which is a really atypical way to eat, because, you know, breakfast is the most important meal of the day, according to some. And I remember not that long ago, a woman had a reading with my teacher, and she comes out of the reading and I ask her how it went, and she goes, I just realized that I'm not crazy. And I was like, awesome, tell me more. And she told me that she got so much flack from her family about eating at night, and it turned out that she was a nighttime eater. She was so ashamed of this that she would get up in the middle of the night, starving, go make herself a full meal, clean it up, and then go back to bed so that nobody knew that she was eating in the middle of the night, because it's so bad for you. And that, I mean, it broke my heart, but I also feel like at that moment she was like set free from her own prison of shame. And intuitively she knew that that's what she needed for her to like feel good, and that there is nothing wrong or bad about that. You know, it's it's not a one size fits all deal for any of us. So that's just a great example. I was like, that really warmed my heart when that happened.
Well, you just spoke to my sister recently and informed her that her daughter is a nighttime eater.
Mm.
And she wasn't surprised at all when you said that. She's like, that makes so much sense because my niece has the most insane energy. It'll be like 10 o'clock at night. She should be sleeping. She's 3. And she's just, that's the time of the day when she has the most energy and she's just crazy. So it was just interesting. My sister's like, that doesn't even surprise me at all because she's just so wild at night. Like that, it just wasn't surprising, you know?
Well, you
And
just brought up something really great, which is actually the fact that whatever your eating recommendation refers to about you, it's not just about food. Like, I feel more alive when there's sunshine. I feel more myself when I'm out in sunshine and UV rays and daytime. And like, nighttime for me is not about like productivity at all. Like, I can't work at night. That's not a thing that I do. I like to stay up late, but I'm not productive during that time. And people who are nighttime eaters, they like live in the night. You know what I mean? That's when they really perk up. So what I said to your sister, I think, is, you know, for her, it's not about having a bedtime. It's about like, okay, you can't be in the rest of the house during this time. Like, be in your room, do what you need to do, be productive. You know, that's another thing. You know, human design is really for mothers to raise children. So this nutritional aspect of who they are, it's like not to force your child to eat during the day. I spoke to a mother whose daughter also had that recommendation. She's like, I've seen her fall asleep with food in her mouth. Like, she's just, it's like late at night and she's eating in the kitchen and she's like nodding off with food in her mouth. And it's like, she's like, yeah, it's weird because like we can't really have a traditional like family gathering in the middle of the day because she doesn't really want to eat at that time. But she's like, my children taught me exactly who they are. They know intuitively about themselves, you
And I
know?
love that she's not forcing it on them,
Hmm.
which I'm sure so many houses do because, you know, it's just like what you said is like tradition. It's, you know, work ends, families eat together. That's what families do. That's, you know, food in a lot of, I think food is love to so many people, you know, just sit and eat together. But not everybody is meant to eat at the same time. And then what about also, I know you had said that some people are designed to eat mostly cold food or mostly hot food. You know, maybe talk a little bit about that and also give Stephen as an example because he has a totally different strategy.
Right. So what I was talking about is that circumstances are one aspect of this. So my circumstance is daylight hours. And then for some people, yes, it's about the food itself. So when we talk about hot and cold food, it's about hotter or cooler than your own body temperature. So it's not necessarily about like only eating salads, but like letting your food cool off so that it's not piping hot, or making sure that your food stays piping hot, like, um, you know, having a hot stone or something like that to make sure that consistently throughout your meal, your food stays heated. Um, but one of the most challenging, so to speak, um, circumstance or food recommendation is called sequential or alternating, which is eating one ingredient at a time. And what this says about you is that your body has the original type of digestive system, what we call a caveman, right? Like, when people lived in caves, they would come out of their cave, they would find something to eat, they would eat it, and then they would move on and find something else to eat and eat it. So it's kind of like layering your food. So, you know, those little trays when you're a kid that like divides all of your food, that's exactly what it's about. So some people are here to eat like all of something and then move on to the next thing and then the next thing and the next thing. And then some people are here to eat like one of this, one of this, one of this, one of this, and then keep going. But it's really about simplifying. And my teacher has a really funny anecdote about this. When he first found out that this was his eating recommendation, he was shocked because he, first of all, was like a great cook his whole life. He loved to eat. And what he realized is that he was never truly satisfied by food because our food is so complex. So his solution to this was always eating more. Like he could never fully be satisfied, so he must need more food. And he found that when he started really simplifying his diet, he was full so much faster. And initially he was like, wait, but what about pizza?
Yeah,
And
I was going to say the plate with the different trays, you're not talking about having like penne alla vodka in one and, like not mixing like peas, carrots, steak, or whatever, one ingredient.
Mhm. So, he eats as close to a single ingredient as he possibly can. Um, it's not a traditional way of eating, but he finds that first of all, he is much more satisfied. He spends a lot less time thinking about food and having his life revolve around food. It really just makes things so much more simple. And it actually works really well for me because simple is so much easier for me to digest. I have a fairly sensitive digestive system, so it makes sense that eating just a vegetable and a protein in a meal makes it so much easier. Like grains are definitely not my friend, and that's something that took me a really long time to really understand. Similarly, like cheese doesn't really agree with me, but technically if I eat cheese during the middle of the day, it's I'll get as much nutrition out of what I'm eating as my body possibly can. That's what these recommendations are about. It's not like, oh, it's daytime so you can eat hot dogs and burgers and fried chicken and you'll be fine. Those things just don't have a lot of nutritional value, as we now know. And so it's not necessarily about just eating with reckless abandon. It's more like your body will absorb the optimal amount of nutrition from what you're putting in it during this time. Similarly, with being a single ingredient eater, your body can identify what you're eating and get the most nutrition out of it so that you feel fuller faster. And this is not something that we like to promise in human design, but my teacher did lose a significant amount of weight because he was eating less and being more satisfied, and because his body was able to process the food a lot easier. So his health was, he knew his health was at risk when he started his journey. And it wasn't until I think 7 years into his human design journey that he even heard about this food recommendation. And because his was the most challenging, he had what I consider to be like the most dramatic results of switching his diet. For me, it's a lot of brain fog that lifted. Once I became very diligent about not eating at night, I feel like my just overall like nervous system has really calmed down, which is a big part of why we recommend this to parents, is because what the fuel that you put in the vehicle has so much to do with how it moves through the world, that with children, it's not necessarily about the psychology, although that really helps when it comes to conflict resolution and interaction and all of these things. But the baseline is nutrition. So optimizing that for them can make such a huge difference in their overall like demeanor.
Hmm. I remember the first time that I had a reading with Stephen, and he said, "Do you want to hear about your food strategy?" And I was so excited to learn that about myself because, I don't think I even knew at the time that there was an aspect where food was so specific to me.
Mm-hmm.
So, and then also at the time as well, it was only, I think, a year and a half or so ago, here I had been on this psoriasis journey and using food as one of the main healing components, eating, staying away from things that cause inflammation. And so my brain was, well, I just have to eat mostly alkaline foods, less acidic. And like that was the answer, lots of greens, lots of nutrients. It never dawned on me that, the whole absorption of nutrients. Well, let me tell everyone actually what my food strategy is
I was
first.
gonna say.
That would make more sense. But so I learned that, and Zsuzsi, you probably can say it a little better than me, but so I'm a nervous eater. I like to eat with I need to eat with my hands because the touching of the food actually helps me absorb the nutrients and recognize what the food is and absorb it better. And actually, I think Stephen, yeah, okay, good. It's taking me a lot of time to say that correctly. But Stephen is her teacher, by the way, in case we didn't mention that. And we'll give you all of their information at the end. But Stephen had said to me, I believe he made a cat and mouse analogy, if my memory serves me right, where he was saying something about like, when a cat chases a mouse to like torture it before it eats because it's like almost like getting its enzymes going and getting the body prepared for digestion. So that's what he kind of described to me as far as touching my food. He was like, if you have a bowl of soup, literally stick your finger in the soup. So, and it's taken me some time to remember to touch my food. And sometimes I forget, but for the most part, I remember, or I just naturally do. But the second I got that reading, the first thing that went through my mind was, that's so funny because I really enjoy eating with my hands. And I never really thought about that ever until he said it. And then I was like, I really do eat with my hands a lot. Like I love licking my fingers and having like small pieces of food like tapas or wings or things like that. So I thought that was interesting. But I was telling Zsuzsi, I was telling you earlier how for a long time, on my spiritual journey especially, I would be constantly reading blogs and watching videos about food and all these healing things you can do with food. And I really was sort of brainwashed that I needed to sit with my food, be with my food, smell, take in the smells, take in the taste, like really just be with my food in every sense. And there was one day a long, long time ago, I actually wrote a blog about this. And I was sitting having lunch, and I was working from home that day. And I was sitting eating lunch at my kitchen table, and everything in my body wanted to get up and just go do something. Everything. While I was eating, I think also my whole career in television, I rarely took a lunch break where I was away from my desk. And that was definitely, not good to do. I think everyone needs to get up and leave work and walk away and go get their mind off things. But it's funny when I look back because that day in my house, I just could not sit still. I couldn't just be with my food. I kept trying over and over and over. And my mind kept wandering. And I was like, okay, I got to bring it back. But when I look back on my whole life with food, I'm like, I'm always doing something. I'm always busy, or and my favorite thing ever is to go for brunch. That's my favorite meal too. And to go to a busy restaurant with lots of people, and there's a lot of like excitement and buzzing. And it's interesting too, because that's how it is in my TV world. Anytime I'm in an office, there's always a pit with lots of producers, and there's so many people on the phone and people talking to one another. And that's where I would always eat. Even if I didn't sit at my desk, I would sit in the pit among all these people, and again, buzzing. So it's so fascinating to me And now during the pandemic, I'm home and I'm working from home and it's very quiet. And I was just saying to you earlier how I don't just sit and eat my lunch while I'm working, because I really don't want to be working while I'm eating. I do want to be doing something else, even if it's talking to my mom or, talking on the phone with a friend, but lately I've been just standing in my kitchen, eating with my fingers and just kind of cooking while I'm baking something, while I'm cleaning dishes. Like I just like to do stuff. And I always gave myself such a hard time for that. I always was like, why can't I calm down and just be? And I just really punished myself for that. So it really just opened my eyes to like you said, giving myself permission to be that way and be proud of it. Like, this is my design. This is who I am, you know?
Well, and it's funny because every recommendation has an inverse, right? So there are people here who are here to eat calmly. And for those people, eating in a restaurant is a nightmare. And having dinner with a bunch of people in their house just like isn't comfortable. So in a lot of those situations, like people will, try to shame them for not wanting to eat with others, and they force themselves to interact while they're eating, and they don't understand why uh, they don't feel good. A lot of what we consider to be like normal digestive issues that we try to solve with like medication or sometimes homeopathically with like ginger and things like that, stem from us going against our recommendation, only to find out like, oh no, I had it right in the beginning, and I got taken out of that because of societal pressure. And for you, nervous could be doing something, nervous could be with people. I just want to make one tiny correction, which is that the cat mouse analogy is about the nervousness, because your physiology needs to be nervous in order for you to digest optimally. For you, the cognition is feeling, which is so important to understand about yourself, because you take in the world through touch. Like, you are a very touchy person. Like, you always hug me when you see me. Like, whenever you're supporting me, you like put your hand on my wrist or my shoulder. Like, that's who you are. You take in the world through your hands. And for me, it's taste. So if I don't like the way food tastes, I no longer force myself to eat it. Like, I don't care if I paid for it. My body is not going to appreciate something that I don't like the texture of or the taste of in my mouth, which, is an interesting sort of like, but that's so healthy for you. Like, I just don't like the way kale tastes. I intellectually know that it's good for me, but I don't like the way that it feels in my mouth. So I'm not going to eat it just because of some sort of like pathology out there that like kale is king and I should be eating kale. Should is the killer of all joy, right? Like, you should sit and calmly eat your food was so difficult for you, and how much shame you created within yourself because you couldn't do it, and now you have permission not to.
Yeah. And it also just makes me look at all the other aspects of my life where I don't give myself permission to do something that just feels better, because of the shoulds that are out there that, society creates, and then we take them and we run with them. Meanwhile, they might not serve us. Um, there was this blog that I read. I've been reading a little bit about human design because I actually want to talk to you more about it on the side. And I was just reading a couple of things about food. And there was this one blogger who, so we won't get into it right now, maybe we could even have another call, but there's different types, archetypes, right, in human design. And there's 4 of them. And when people learn which one they are, then, you know, they learn more and more and more about themselves. There's all different layers. And she was basically saying, like, okay, if you're this type, you know, when it comes to food, you should, you know, if you're really, you know, and she would just give different examples, like, you know, if you're really excited about how, you know, if it really looks, you're excited about the specific food, you should eat it. Or, you know, oh, these particular people are better on a keto diet or a Whole30 diet. You know, these people have a lesser sensitivity to offensive, bad, you know, foods or whatever. Like, so I'm just reading this and I'm like, but isn't it incredibly specific? Like, every single person, every individual is so different. And that's why it's so important to, you know, get a free reading online, like you said, or like, you know, sign up with someone like Steven and get a really, you know, professional reading and get your chart read, because isn't everyone 100% to have their own design?
Mm. I love that you asked this question because human design is a really, really powerful modality. And I can completely understand why people are so drawn to it. Because once you hear some very basic truth about yourself, so mundane, so simple, and yet nobody's ever put it into those words for you, it's easy to get hooked. It's easy to want to be a part of this conversation. It's very, very easy to get sucked in. Now, what I said about having a free reading is basically there are aura types, there are profiles, there's definition, and strategy, which is something that you can learn all about if you make your own free chart. There's so much information out there about these 4 things. But like you just said, everybody's eating recommendation is so unique that I would recommend having a reading from a holistic practitioner, and trying not to get caught up in a lot of what is out there as somebody's interpretation of what the system is, because it is a science. It is a science that people take years and years and years and years to learn. My teacher has been in this information for 20 plus years, and he studied with the original teacher of human design, Ra Uru Hu, who there is tons of information about out there. But people who get really drawn into this information read and study and even get certified as guides or analysts in a basic way. They can sometimes start interpreting the more nuanced parts of this science to try and make it easier for people. But to be honest with you, it's not accurate enough, because everybody has their own very specific way of being, and making blanket statements kind of puts us right back where we started in this one size fits all kind of way. So yes, there are 4 aura types, and that has nothing to do with how you eat. Or it's not nothing, but it isn't, that's not what gives you your eating recommendation.
Yeah, it was like a huge red flag to me when I was reading about that. And I'm like, oh my gosh, people might go away from, say, watching this video and Google, you know, human design, food, and read about the different types and be like, oh, that definitely, that sounds like me. Oh, okay, so I should eat keto, or I should, you know, I could eat offensive foods without, you know, my body being sensitive to them, or, and just, yeah, I read that and was like, I have to talk to her about that, because I want to make sure we steer people in the right way. So tell people, you know, just where's tell them about your website and Steven, and if they want to, you know, and then tell them also at maybe other places where they can read more about it if they're interested. And we'll definitely put all of this information below in the description.
Absolutely. So if you want to know more about my company, Genetic Yoga, geneticyoga.com is a great place to get more information about us and Stephen's background and our experience level and what it means to be a part of our community, because we are a human design community. We have a subscription service through which you can learn a lot more about human design. We have community calls once a week. I love seeing you on those calls, Kim. A lot of people say they get tons of value out of the questions that they have answered through my teacher. And it's more of a discussion than anything else.
And there's like hundreds of videos at this point on your Patreon page, right?
Absolutely.
Amazing.
You can also follow us on Instagram at Genetic Yoga, and now on TikTok, where I teach human design to people, which is really, really fun. And then, you know, the best source for human design information overall is Ra's original site, which is jovianarchive.com, through which you can make a free chart for yourself. There's tons of things to listen to and watch. He has a YouTube channel as well, where he talks about the origins of human design and the different aura types. So those are two like really solid sources of information. I too have seen a lot of people talk about eating by type. And, you know, I really appreciate how much they love this system. I just worry about misinformation, because there is so much to know. And what's really funny is, in the very beginning of my studies, it was a little bit overwhelming, right? Because there's so many like numbers and words and oh my gosh. And somebody said something great to me, is like, this is a very complex system, but it folds up nicely. And what I love about that term is like, you don't need to know everything about human design. There's like some great things that you can learn about yourself through just one reading that can stay with you the rest of your life. And then if you're fascinated by it, you can make charts for your family and your friends, and you can listen to podcasts that we created where you can deepen your knowledge. But really, this is for you, and it's not for anyone else. It's for you to give yourself permission to be who you are and to eat how you eat and all of those things.
And to be your truest self.
Mm-hmm.
And give yourself permission to be that way, what feels good. But we can't do that if we don't know what that is.
Mm.
And you always say that when Stephen has readings with people, you know, I know you're very involved in that people for most of the readings are always like, they already kind of know what he said on some deep level. Like it rings true.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm so grateful that you're sharing this with anyone who's, you know, everyone who's watching. I think it's really impactful. And the few things, like you just said, there's a few key things that I carry around with me that I now know and am still on the journey of practicing and remembering and refreshing myself of, and that feels so good. And it's such a blessing. So thank you for all of the work you're doing, Zsuzsi, in this world. I mean, you're helping people be more joyful and happy and learn who they are, and that's incredible. So thank you, and thank you for being on here with me today.
Thank you. Well, you said something really important just now, which is that it is a practice, and that's why we called our company Genetic Yoga, because it's the practice of being you. And it's funny that we even have to have that conversation almost, because like, oh, I'm always me. But this is being yourself on purpose.
Imagine that.
Right?
I love that. I love the name of the company. It's the practice of being you. It's so unique. It just feels so good.
Thank you.
Thank you, Zsuzsi. Thank you so much. Everyone, thank you so much for listening, and more videos to come. Thank you, Zsuzsi. Bye, everybody. Zsuzsi, have a good day.
Thank you.